good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our Sage 100 Tips and Tricks webinar today. We will be starting in just a minute, but I wanted to go ahead and do a little housekeeping as we get started. So I do want you to know that your phones will be muted during the presentation, but you will have the opportunity to ask questions through the Q&A box that you have available on your screen. So we will get to as many of the questions as we can today. Due to time constraints, we may have to answer those offline, but please note if you do submit a question, they will all be addressed after the webinar. So do not hesitate to put questions in, and I'll get to as many of those during the presentation as I can today. So my name is Pam Scott. So today we are going to be talking about Sage 100 and the road ahead. So as I mentioned just a minute ago, you will be muted during this presentation, but please feel free to use the Q&A feature to type in any questions. And again, we'll get to as many of those as we can during the time that we have allotted today. Now, for the presentation today, I will be doing a PowerPoint presentation and going through the road ahead. Sage has not yet pre-released a version of the, made a copy of the 2021 version available to Oasis. So we will be going through this today, but I think it will be very beneficial, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things. So basically today with our agenda, and everyone should be seeing the agenda on the screen. I've experienced some audio and video issues today, so if you cannot see the agenda, please raise your hand or type something in the Q&A so that I will know that you can't see the screen. But today we're going to talk about the current supported versions of Sage 100, the upcoming release of the 2021 version, which also I believe will be known as the 6.3 version. We're going to highlight a few of the new features that are slated to be in the 2021 release. We're going to talk about the difference about if you've had a service update installed versus what a full upgrade version of your software looks like. So how you can tell the difference and know whether or not a service update was installed or if we did an actual upgrade of your software. We're going to talk about how to determine the version that you're running, how to request an upgrade, and upcoming webinars. So the first thing that we're going to talk about are the current supported versions. And Sage has changed how they do their, how they retire versions. And they started that, I believe, with in 2020. But historically, Sage has always supported whatever the current version is and 2 prior versions. And then when a new version was released, the oldest version support dropped off on September 30th of that year. So if a new version was released on May 1st, that oldest version was still supported until September 30th. Starting with the 2020 version release, they still support the current version and 2 versions back, but the oldest version drops off as soon as that new version is released. So you don't have as much of a time frame there as you did before. So right now, what is currently supported by Sage is 6.0, which is the 2018 version, 6.1, which is 2019, and 6.2 is 2020. With the release of the 2021 version, the 2018 version is automatically going to retire. And then the current supported versions will be then be 2021, 2020, and 2019. Now, if you're on the 2018 version, don't panic. It doesn't mean that you're going to get cut off from Oasis automatically, but we are going to talk about what it means and what it looks like. So when a version is retired, what that means as far as Sage software is concerned is that they will no longer issue service updates, product updates, year-end updates. An example of that would be the new 1099 NEC form that was released in 2020. That service update was only made available for the supported versions. So I know a lot of folks were kind of caught off guard with that at the end of the year, but that's an example of why it's very important that you remain current and on a supported version. Sage software will no longer provide direct technical support to end users on retired versions, and Sage will also no longer provide direct support to Oasis on your behalf for those retired versions. So again, before anybody panics that's on the 2018 version, Oasis will continue to support you until you upgrade, but we do require that you don't delay in that upgrade, but we will support you on your behalf. We just would not be able to call Sage should we run into an issue that we could not answer. So, and then the other thing, and this is really important, especially for some folks that are running some really old retired versions, is that as new versions are released or they're tested with supported technology, and as new technology is released, Sage does testing on the supported versions with that new technology, but it does not.
Hi, Pam. We seem to have lost your audio. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jody Patterson with Oasis Solutions. We seem to have lost Pam's audio. Would somebody please chat or send something, let me know if you can hear my voice? And it looks like Pam is reconnecting. Okay, so you can hear me. We seem to have lost Pam. Thank you for confirming that you can hear me. She is reconnecting to audio and should be back with us in just a moment. We apologize for the technical difficulties.
I'm back on. I'm not
and there's
sure.
Pam.
Yeah, I'm not sure why my call has dropped twice during the session, so I do apologize. And let me get back to my screen and share. Okay, again, I do apologize for that. I'm not sure what's going on, but occasionally I have days where something is in the atmosphere and my calls will just drop. So I do apologize for that. So as I was mentioning before we lost our connection, is that Sage no longer tests old retired versions with newer technology. So an example of that could be that let's say that you're on a really old version of Sage and you need to get a new server. Your new server technology may not be supported. Your version of Sage may not be supported with the new server technology. So that could then delay you getting a new server because you're having to wait for an upgrade and so forth and so on. So that's why it's important to keep up to date. So this is a list. This is kind of just a partial screen. We're just going to look at the table at the top. But this talks about the current versions, when they were released, and when they are going to be end of support or retired. So you can see that the 2021 version is scheduled to release sometime in April. And then it should be supported, or not should, it will be supported until they release the 2024 version. So again, you can kind of see when those release dates are. So if you are on a version prior to 2018, you are currently not running a supported version of Sage 100. So the release of the 2021 version, as of today, we have been told that that version is going to be released probably on or about April 22nd. Please note that, you know, Sage reserves the right to change the release date of any of their products. But as of today, my understanding is that it's going to be released on or about April the 22nd. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and show you some of the new features that are going to be added to Sage. Now, all of the new features are going to be included in the subscription plan. So if you're on subscription versus perpetual license, only some of the features are included in both subscription and perpetual. I believe that 99.9% of all of our clients, if not all of them, are on the subscription plan. But what we're taking a look at now are features that would be included definitely within the subscription plan. This is not a complete list. This is just a partial list that I wanted to go through and show you some of the things that they've added. So the NEC form that was added in 2020, the NEC feature to be able to select that 1099 form was only available in accounts payable. They're going to now be adding that so that it's included in the purchase order module as well. They're going to make some changes to the role and user security. They're going to simplify it. And they're also adding an inquiry screen to the user and role maintenance. They're going to add a default form maintenance. So you can default a particular form code either by company, by a role, or by a user. So that's a really neat feature to be able to have. And then also they're going to add in company maintenance the ability to copy existing or forms from one company to another. So when you're setting up a new company, if you're wanting to copy the, any specific custom reports that you have, or let's say the AP check form layout or your invoice layout, you're going to be able to use to copy that within the company maintenance feature. They're adding new email settings where OAuth will now be available for authenticating SMPT email requests. They're going to add a new utility to accounts payable to be able to reset the paid today flag. So you know sometimes when you've gone through and you've selected invoices for payment, or you have an issue with a check run and it thinks the invoice is being paid, but it really isn't. Instead of having to go in through data file display and maintenance, or having to call us to go through and remove that paid today flag, they've created a utility that you can run that will be able to do that for you. In Positive Pay, that's available in the bank reconciliation module, they're adding a feature to be able to include, to say whether or not you want to include wire transfers into that Positive Pay file. So that's a new feature that they're adding. In inventory management, in maintenance, in the maintenance screen and the inquiry screen, they're having the ability to set a date range for the transactions that you see. So you can simplify if you just want to see transactions from, 2020 and 2021 versus seeing all of the transactions on those maintenance and inquiry screens. This is a really great new feature in purchase order. In receipt of invoice, if you're doing an inquiry on existing receipt of invoices, you will have the ability to see the line detail on that receipt of invoice. So not only will you be able to see the line detail like you always have been able to on receipt of goods, but you will be able to see that on receipt of invoice as well. Check numbers. The check number field in all applicable modules is going to be extended from 6 characters to 10 characters. I know we've had some people asking for that for quite some time. You will have the option to install Sage 100. You'll be able to install a 64-bit version. So that may be something that's of interest to your IT folks. Visual Integrator is going to add an option for additional new options for managing your log files. And in company maintenance, you're now going to be able to set a company type for each individual company that will identify whether that company is live, it's an archive company, a demo company, or a test company. Okay, so that kind of goes through a short summary list of some of the highlights that I picked out to show you about what's going to be included in the new version. That does not include everything. Again, there wouldn't be enough time to go through all of the new features that are going to be added to the next release, but I wanted to highlight some of the things that I know that customers have talked to us about over the years. I wish Sage had the ability to do this, or why can't I see this, or why can't I do that? So those are just a sampling of some of the new features that you're going to see. I will add that if you are on version 2018 6.0 or higher, that the current modules that you use have all been brought up to the new business framework. And what that means is, for instance, any of you clients that use payroll or job cost, with the 2018 upgrade that those 2 modules were brought up to the new business framework, which basically means the back end of the programming changed. So any Visual Integrator imports and exports, any custom forms, custom crystal reports, all of those had to be recreated with that upgrade. Since the 2018 version, so this includes 19, 20, and will include 21, there are no modules that are going to be moved into the new business framework. All of the base modules have already been upgraded. So all of your current, your modules, your forms, your reports, your imports and exports, any custom scripts, that type of thing will automatically, it will go through the conversion process and nothing has to be redone. So if you are at least on 2018, you do not have to worry about anything not converting during the upgrade. So what I wanted to talk about now is the difference between installing an upgrade versus a service update. So many of you had a service update installed recently for the 1099 NEC form. So please note that did not upgrade your Sage 100 software. You're still on the same version that you were. It just updated the version of the service update. So for example, if your software is, if you look at your version and it says 6.00.10, 600 is the version, which means it's the 2018 version. The .10, that's the service update version. So a lot of times when we're asking you, well, what version are you running? We want to know all of this information because maybe there's a new patch or a fix that's been released that you need, and we'll want to know, well, you know, what service update are you running, and we'll make sure that we install the applicable service update to then add that patch to your software. Or if there's something new that's required at year end regarding a new 1099 form, something that the government issues related to payroll and your W-2s, then a service update is what is installed. So that's the difference between an upgrade of your Sage 100 and a service update. So if you want to know what version of Sage you're running and what service update you're on, if you go into Sage at the top of your toolbar, if you click File and then Run, and then type in *info and enter, it's going to return the screen that I show here at the bottom left. And this shows my library version, which is the main version, which is 6.0. The system version includes whatever service update I'm on. So this is showing that I'm on the 2018 version and I'm running service update 6. If you are also a payroll client, you will have another screen text at the bottom of that screen, which is going to show your payroll version. This is going to show up if you're on 6.0 or higher. If you're running a version below 6.0, so it would be anything, the version prior to that was actually 5.40. So if you're running anything below 5.40, you are not going to see the payroll information listed because the payroll is now a separate update and the versions are tracked separately. So hopefully that's not confusing, but that's how you can tell what version that you are currently running. So if you have any issues with that or being able to determine what version you're on, just let us know, and we'll be glad to walk you through it or even connect to your Sage and walk you through that process. Okay, so if you want to request an upgrade, so let's say that you've been putting it off, you realize that you're on the 2018 version and you know you need to upgrade. I will say that most everyone that's on the 2018 version should have already received at least one personal email that provided information about the upgrade. But obviously it was very early in the year and everybody was dealing with year end, so it's certainly something that could have been missed. But if you are wanting to request an upgrade, all you need to do is to send an email to Garen Stout. She is our Client Success Manager, and this is her email address, and just put upgrade request in the subject line. And then when Garen gets that request, then she will send you our upgrade request form, and she'll also send you a copy of the latest supported platform matrix that talks about the system requirements for your operating system, your server, your workstations, and so forth. And then we can go ahead and get the ball running. So please feel free to reach out to Garen to request an upgrade. So I want to go through a couple of FAQs, and then I will open this up to any additional questions that you might have. So the first question is, you know, I'm on a current supported version. It's not going to drop off for a couple of years, but can I still upgrade? Because there's some of those new features I really think that we could benefit from. So the answer is yes. You can certainly upgrade your Sage with each new release if you choose to. We do have clients that when a new version is released, they want to go ahead and be on the latest and greatest and take advantage of all of the new features within Sage. So certainly, you do not have to wait until your version is ready to retire. Just send Garen an email that I mentioned in the prior slide, and we will go ahead and get the process started. Another question that I get is, you know, some people, their fiscal year ends in June, and they're like, well, I really need to upgrade, but I've really got to get through my fiscal year end, and I'm not going to be ready to upgrade until probably late summer or early fall. Can I, what do I need to do? What I would suggest is that you go ahead and get in touch with us so that we can get the pre-upgrade analysis process started, get your upgrade scoped, get that to you, get you to approve the project, and then we will start the project based on your timeline. So an example would be, I did a pre-upgrade analysis for a client last week, and with everything that they have going on and with their busy time, she really is not ready to upgrade until October. Well, you don't want to wait until October to start the pre-upgrade analysis process because, historically we do not perform upgrades in December or January. So we want to make sure that anybody that wants to upgrade within 2021 is completed by the end of November. So we did her pre-upgrade analysis, we scoped her project. When she approves that scope of work, then she will get assigned a project manager, but they will know that she is not ready to upgrade until October. The PM will reach out to her and just say, hey, I'm going to be your project manager. How about I touch base in early September so we can start about planning and start putting together some dates for October. Another question, and I get this a lot, is does Oasis still wait before they start upgrading new versions? And the answer to that is yes. For those of you that are long-term clients, you know that we never start installing a new version immediately. We start doing internal testing and review the new features. We do a lot of testing to make sure that we don't find any issues in the software. And we also watch Sage news threads for any updates or any new findings. Historically, we usually wait until Sage has released the first service update, which includes some fixes and patches, before we start installing the new version. I would say, with the exception of 2020, because that first service update came out really late due to COVID and everything else that was going on in 2020, but I would say that historically, Sage has released their first service update within probably 2 months of releasing a new version. So we fully expect that this year. So if it's released at the end of April, unless there's just some huge gotcha that happens, we fully expect to start installing our client base probably in June of this year. So with that, since we wait until the first service update, typically, some people will say, well, should I just wait until June and send my request in? If you are needing to upgrade and or on a supported version but wanting to upgrade, I would not delay the request. We already have several clients in the queue that have signed off and are waiting for the 2021 version. So they're going to hit that queue and start getting those upgrades in May, June, July. So don't put off the request. You certainly don't want to put it off until the third or fourth quarter, because we want to be able to get you upgraded as quickly as possible and not run into a delay because of year end. And I'll open up to more questions in just a second. One thing I did want to make everyone aware of is that, and this is kind of a total different subject, but it's something new for Sage, that Sage is now offering their own hosting option. So if you are tired of maintaining your own server, your Sage 100 server, or maybe you need a new server with an upgrade and you're not wanting to go to the cost of purchasing a new server, Sage is now offering hosting through Azure, which is a Microsoft solution. And some of the benefits is, and this is just very simplified in what I'm telling you and doesn't go into all of the detail. But it's going to give you worry-free backups of your Sage 100. And if any of you have had your system compromised with viruses or ransomware or anything like that and found situations where you didn't have a good backup or your last backup was from a week to a month ago, you know how important it is to not have to worry about getting good backups of your Sage. And also with the Azure platform, it allows Sage 100 end users to access Sage 100 through any device. So you don't have to go through or have to have a VPN. Oasis is going to be hosting a webinar on March the 25th at 2 p.m. on this new Azure platform. So everyone should have already received an email promoting this webinar so that you could sign up for it. And I do believe there is going to be another mailing going out very soon. Sometimes we find that those get caught up in spam or junk mail, or the email just doesn't make it to you. So if you haven't received an email to this webinar, if you will email Garen at this address, we'll make sure that one is forwarded to you. It's a free webinar, as all of ours are, and it's open to anyone. So, if an end user wants to attend, if you want to invite your IT professional, whether internal or external IT, anyone is more than welcome to attend this webinar. So I did want to make everyone aware of that. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to see if anyone has any additional questions. I do see that maybe some questions popped up during the session that I believe Jody probably has answered. But if anyone else, if you do have questions, feel free to go ahead and ask those at this point. And if you think about questions following this webinar that you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to ask this, please feel free to email Garen, and she will pass the question along to me, or she will send it to the appropriate Sage consultant to get those questions answered. So again, we think the 2021 version is going to be out around the 3rd week of April. And as I mentioned, Oasis will start immediately testing. But if you are needing to upgrade, or you got information from us, from me, Pam Scott, a couple of months ago, if you're on the 2018 version, please go ahead and get that upgrade request filled out. If you can't find the email, just feel free to get in touch with us, and we will be more than glad to forward that information again. So, Jody, I'm not seeing any additional questions at this point. So we will go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say a couple of people raised their hands, but it was fairly early on, and I think it's when you lost audio. I lowered everybody's hands, so if you did have a question that you wanted to ask, please raise your hand again or chat that into the Q&A window now so that we can address that. I didn't want to dismiss you, but I do think that those raised hands were at the time that Pam lost audio.
Right. Yeah, I was assuming that as well, but you're right. It could have been something else, or it may be that we answered the question later in the presentation as well. So for all of you that are attending today, you will get a follow-up email probably sometime tomorrow or maybe Friday, and it will include a link to the recording of this webinar. So you can watch it again. Feel free to share it with any coworkers, anyone else that you would like to see the information, but you will receive a recording. So I'm not seeing any other questions that are popping up. So I would like to thank everyone for attending today, and I hope you found this information valuable. And we look forward to talking with you soon about getting your Sage upgraded and taking advantage of all of these new features. So we will go ahead and end the session now, and thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.